From several more days of severe weather across the Great Plains of the Midwest to a couple of tropical storms potentially forming off the coast of southern Mexico and Central America by the middle of next week, this is your Tranquilo weather forecast for June 6, 2026. First of all, look at our current day 1 SPC severe weather outlook for today. You can see we have a couple slight risks of severe weather. We have one from northern and central Indiana back into portions of the New England area, especially into southern New Hampshire and much of Massachusetts. And we have another slight risk of severe weather across northeastern Montana and northwestern North Dakota. For a tornado risk for today, we have a 2% tornado risk, mainly from northeastern Montana into northwestern North Dakota, where you can see an isolated tornado this afternoon. And we also have a 2% tornado risk from eastern Ohio back into western Pennsylvania, where we could see a couple isolated tornadoes this afternoon, and no significant tornado threat is forecast as of now. For our wind risk, we have a 30% wind risk from portions of eastern Ohio back into much of Pennsylvania, into northern New Jersey, all the way into southeastern New York, where you can see some widespread damaging wind gusts. You also have a 15% wind risk from northern and central Indiana back into southern New Hampshire and much of Massachusetts, and we also have a 15% wind risk across northwestern North Dakota and northeastern Montana, and our SIG-1 area there extends from northeastern Wyoming into eastern Montana back into western North Dakota, there in a sliver of northwestern South Dakota. And we also have a 5% damaging wind risk from central Oklahoma back into central Texas, where we could see some isolated damaging wind gusts later this afternoon. And for our hail risk today, we mainly have a 15% hail risk across northern and eastern Ohio back into western and central Pennsylvania, and another area to watch across northeastern Montana back into northwestern North Dakota, where you can see some scattered large hail potentially reaching up to the size of golf balls this afternoon. And we do have a 5% hail risk from central Oklahoma back into western Texas, where you can see some isolated large hail this afternoon. Now, looking at the Day 2 severe weather outlook for tomorrow, you can see we mainly have a slight risk of severe weather across central and western North Dakota back into western and central South Dakota into southeastern Montana and northeastern Wyoming. We also have a marginal risk of severe weather across eastern Oklahoma and western Arkansas, and another area to watch across eastern Virginia, southern Maryland, and southern Delaware as well. For tornado risk tomorrow, we have a couple 2% tornado risks. We have one across north-central North Dakota, where you can see an isolated tornado tomorrow afternoon. And for our southern risk area across eastern Oklahoma and western Arkansas, we also have a 2% tornado risk in that area, where you can see an isolated tornado or two sometime tomorrow. For our wind risk, you can see we have a 50% wind risk across our slight risk area there, from much of North Dakota back into western South Dakota into northeastern Wyoming there, and we have a 5% damaging wind risk across eastern Virginia back into southern Delaware and southern Maryland there, where you can see some isolated damaging wind gusts reaching up to 65 miles an hour, and in the 15% area where we could see some scattered damaging wind gusts up to 70 miles an hour tomorrow afternoon and evening. And for our hail risk for tomorrow, we only have a one area to watch there. Up in the North Dakota into Wyoming area, we have a 15% hail risk from much of North Dakota into western and central South Dakota back into southeastern Montana and northeastern Wyoming. In our SIG-1 area extends from central North Dakota into northwestern South Dakota back into northeastern Wyoming, where you can see some hail from the size of golf balls to baseballs tomorrow. Now, looking at the day 3 severe weather outlook, which is for Monday, you can see we have a marginal risk of severe weather from portions of the Nebraska Panhandle and western Nebraska back into western Kansas and eastern Colorado. For our probabilistic outlook, you can see we have a 5% severe weather risk area, and we have no SIG-1 area, so no significant severe weather is forecast as of now. Looking at our discussion here, you can see that they are mainly talking about some large hail and severe wind gusts. If we go down to the Central High Plains discussion area, you can see we're talking about increasingly moist air mass, as well as some steep mid-level lapse rates for a moderately unstable environment by the afternoon, with some good daytime heating and some lift along the favored terrain, and that may be able to support some isolated thunderstorm development from mid to late afternoon, and the southwesterly mid-level winds are forecast to strengthen throughout the day, which will create some sufficient vertical shear for supercells capable of some large hail, and there is some models signal that an isolated hail and wind threat may spread to western parts of Nebraska and Kansas by Monday evening, so it looks like we could have a damaging wind threat and a large hail threat, but no tornado threat looks very certain as of now, although we could see a low-end tornado threat added in future outlooks. Now, look at our day 4 for 8 severe weather outlook. This would be for Tuesday. This is our day 4 outlook. You can see we have a 15% severe weather risk, which is equivalent to a slight risk of severe weather. This is across much of North Dakota, much of South Dakota, and to extreme western Minnesota. If we go down to the discussion here, you can see for day 4, we're saying that the latest model guidance remains good in agreement in depicting the progression of a shortwave trough and associated mid/upper level jet streaks into the northern high plains Tuesday afternoon and evening, with downstream height falls overspreading the Dakotas. At the surface, a leaf-like cyclone over eastern Montana Tuesday afternoon is expected to develop north-northeast through western North Dakota, while a trailing cold front edges east into the western Dakotas. Steep low to mid-level lapse rates coupled with boundary layer dew points in the 60s are expected to contribute to a moderate to strong instability across the warrant sector, supporting vigorous thunderstorm development by late afternoon and to evening as the mid-level height falls over spread the region. Strengthening vertical shear with the arrival of the jet streaks will favor supercells capable of large to very large hail, which, remember, that could be up to baseball size, maybe even larger hail and severe wind gusts, and some tornado threat could materialize across central North Dakota during the evening hours as a low-level shear strengthens in response to an intensifying low-level jet. So we could also see some tornado threat. It's probably not going to be like a big tornado outbreak, but again, central North Dakota, you'll have to watch out for even a tornado threat along with the damaging winds and the very large hail. Now look at our day 5 severe weather outlook. This would be for Wednesday next week. You can see we have a 15% severe weather risk across a very, very large area. This includes the entire state of Minnesota, as well as eastern North Dakota, eastern South Dakota, northeastern Nebraska, the northern half of Iowa, all the way back into western Wisconsin. If we go down to the discussion for the day 5 outlook, you can see basically what we're saying right now is that the ensembles depict the elongation of a prominent western U.S. trough into the northern plains with an associated jet extension stretching into the upper Mississippi Valley. That notion is confirmed by the majority of deterministic models, which indicate a significant shortwave trough and associated mid to upper level jets moving through the northern and central plains. At the surface, there is good agreement between the deterministic models and the ensemble member clustering for the primary surface low initially over central South Dakota Wednesday morning will develop north-northeast through the North Dakota, Minnesota, Red River Valley into southeast Manitoba, while a trailing cold front advances through the eastern Dakotas into the upper Mississippi Valley, mid Missouri Valley, and central high plains. Steep lapse rates and very moist and a very moist boundary layer will contribute to moderate to strong instability across the warm sector by mid-afternoon, with initial thunderstorm development anticipated along the front from the eastern Dakotas into western Minnesota. Subsequent storm initiation appears likely southward from along the front through the mid-Missouri Valley into the Central Plains. While there is only some model signal that the deep layer shear vectors may only cross the surface frontal zone at a small angle, sufficient bulk shear magnitudes will exist to support supercells and Boeing structures amidst potentially more complex / messy storm modes. Also, the river hazards are possible, so that means we could see some damaging winds, some very large trees, or even some tornadoes, maybe some strong tornadoes as well, with that quickly spreading it through the upper Mississippi Valley into the Midwest Wednesday evening into night. And the next part could be huge for this event. Should subsequent model run state remain consistent with current trends, a 30% unconditional probability contour may be included in the next forecast update. So tomorrow we could see this get upgraded to an enhanced risk equivalent risk area. So this could be one of the biggest severe weather outbreaks this entire month, one of the biggest we've seen in the last couple months. So I am really looking at Wednesday for a big hail threat, big tornado threat, even a big damaging wind threat as well. So make sure you pay attention for future updates. Now, look at the National Hurricane Center's website. You can see we have a couple areas to watch near the southern coast of Mexico and the coast of Central America. We have a high risk of development area just off the coast of southern Mexico that could form into a tropical storm over the next few days. And then we have another area to the south of Central America that could develop over the next several days and could form into something by the middle of next week. If we go to the discussion here, I couldn't get it to work like it normally does, because see, first of all, we have the offshore southern and southwestern Mexico, which is Eastern Pacific Invest 91 overnight satellite derived wind data depict an elongated area of low pressure located a few hundred miles southwest of whatever that city is, Mexico. Shower and thunderstorm activity associated with the system has gradually increased during the past several hours. Environmental conditions appear conducive for further development of the system, and a tropical depression is likely to form Sunday or early next week. The disturbance is forecast to move generally northward near the coast of southern Mexico over the next few days. Interest in southern Mexico should monitor the progress of the system regardless of development, though locally heavy rainfall is possible across portions of southern Mexico for early next week. So again, even if it doesn't develop into a tropical storm or a hurricane, this could still cause some significant flooding in portions of southern Mexico. This has a 70% chance of developing in 48 hours and 70% chance of developing in the next 7 days as well. And now if we go down to the next area to watch here, which is offshore Central America, disorganized showers and thunderstorms offshore Central America associated with a trough low pressure. Environmental conditions up here are conducive for gradual development of the system will move slowly northward toward the coast of Central America. If the system remains offshore, a tropical depression could form by early next week or the middle of next week. Regardless of development, however, locally heavy rainfalls possible across portions of Costa Rica, Nicaragua, El Salvador, and Guatemala through early next week. It has a 50% chance of development within 40 hours and a 60% chance of development within 7 days, and these probabilities could continue to go up as the system gets more organized. Now look at the model intensity guidance for Invest 91E, which this is from Tropical Tidbits. You can see that the models have a strengthening into a high in tropical depression or low in tropical storm with wind speeds around 25 to 40 knots, which is about 30 miles an hour all the way up to 45 miles an hour for the next 36 to 48 hours before eventually it makes landfall near Mexico or starts to turn off to the west. And some models even have a strength peak a little bit in like the long range of the next 4 to 5 days as well, back into a high in tropical depression and low in tropical storm again. So we can see the system have 2 peaks and likely will not even get anywhere close to hurricane force, but again this could still cause some significant flooding in portions of southern Mexico, so make sure you watch out for that if you are in that area. Now, looking at the model intensity guidance for Invest 92E, which is that system off the coast of Central America, you can see a couple of the models have a strengthening to a low and tropical storm within the next 48 to 84 hours, which is within the next 2 to 4 days. However, a couple of the models actually have a strengthening all the way into a decently strong tropical storm here with winds of 45 to 55 knots, which is about 50 miles an hour all the way up towards 65 miles an hour. Then it will likely make landfall in Central America or start to turn off to the west. And again, this could cause some significant flooding. It likely won't get to hurricane force, but we don't have a lot of models right now, so I will keep you guys updated on future forecasts starting tomorrow or on Monday. Anyways, that is the end of today's weather forecast. Once again, I could not get the satellite imagery to work. Hopefully I can get it to work for my next weather forecast, which will either be tomorrow or on Monday, depending on how big of updates we have on our tropical system and our severe weather forecast. And also, there's a big storm in my area. Actually, several big storms in my area last night as of the time I'm recording this video. And I got several good photos and videos of it. And I got a pretty good time-lapse of the storm as well. So I will have that out in a video once the severe weather and the tropical activity gets less active. And I will see you on the next weather forecast. Goodbye!